and welcome to another edition of the Saturday to Sunday Football.com Quick Slant. I am Matt Caraccio, and today we're going to be taking a look at an exposure of Julian Fleming. He is the incoming freshman at Ohio State. He's a wide receiver. He's 6'2", 199 pounds. And today we're going to be taking a look at an exposure at the 2020 Under Armour All-America game that took place at Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida on January 2nd of this past year. And a couple of things to know about this exposure going into it. The surface that Julian is playing on is turf. The weather has been clear, and the situation we're looking at is taking place in the second quarter with 8:34 left on the clock. It is a 3rd and 10 situation with the ball on the left hash mark, and his team, Team Savage, is down by 7 points. And we're going to take a look at what we might be able to glean from this exposure about Julian from an evaluative perspective. So let's get right to the play. So, through a traditional evaluative lens, we might hear words like body control, contact balance, play strength, power, and competitive toughness used to describe Julian's performance on the field. And while there may be more words and additional context provided, it still centered the analysis around what happened on the field. But in reality, what's happening on the field is being driven by the situation that Julian's performing in. Let me explain. Rodney Mullen once said that context drives content. In other words, when we look at the relationship between the player and the game, when we look at those informational exchanges between the player and the game, that's what's providing the context for the performance that we're going to see on the field. And our job in evaluation, if we want to look, I feel, at what makes a player skillful, what we really need to understand is the information that the problems on the field presented and how well the player connected to it. What was their grip on the situation? So, through a player problem solver evaluative paradigm, our goal is to look at the situation more holistically, to look at the exposure through a problem solver lens. The situation presented a problem to the player. That problem was riddled with information, and the athlete was connecting to that information. And the way in which they connected to that information is what yielded the performance on the field. So, what we want to do is understand better that informational relationship between the player and the game, because that relationship is what's going to transfer to the next level. So, we want to look at things like, did they solve the problem correctly? These are very holistic ideas, meaning, did they solve it adequately and accurately? Was there precision of sensory corrections? Did they solve the problem quickly? So, how much quickness of wit did they display? Did they show rapid, successive movements? Were they able to resolve the situations as they unfolded? Did they show rationality, right? Did they show expediency and economy? Were they able to show the ability to take their own physical skills and calibrate it to the moment, meaning fit it to that moment? Did they show resourcefulness? Did they show an understanding of the different outcomes that could occur and the ability to find a solution that suited them? So we really want to look at a player's ability to adapt their own skills to those unique circumstances. So let's go back and take a look now at this performance through a player problem solver evaluative lens. Okay, so here we go. In order to understand Julian's play on the field, we want to look at this through a player problem solver paradigm. So, what we want to do is we want to really turn the evaluation process on its head. We want to look at this through the lens of the problem taking center stage, the environment, the context, and we want to see how well Julian adapts his movements to the situation as it unfolds. So, in order to understand that, we need to kind of look at some informational constraints, some information that Julian is going to be connecting to, and how well he adapts to it as the play unfolds. So, before we begin, it's important to at least note a couple things. There is some information about the task that Julian has awareness of before he even starts his movement. First of all, he's in the number 2 position away from the sideline. And in addition to that, there's also a play call here. And that play call specifically calls for him to run a hitch route at a depth of about 6 yards from the line of scrimmage. The inside wide receiver to him, the number 3 receiver, is going to go vertical and kind of work towards the back corner or the back pylon of the end zone. And the number 1 receiver is going to work on a deep in route. So it's fair to assume that from this standpoint, Julian, knowing the play, knows that he's going to have or should have a fair amount of space to work with underneath should he be getting the football. So if he receives the football, he's expecting this entire area to be vacated of any defensive presence. So let's go ahead and see as the play unfolds how this problem or how Julian's understanding of this problem needs to change and adapt as the problem itself changes and unfolds. So here we go. As the ball is snapped, Julian accelerates. And notice where his eyes are. So notice what type of information is being exchanged here. He's looking at the defender for 2 reasons. Number 1, so he can sell the deep route, and also so he can assess the trajectory of the defender. So that way he can keep tabs on whether or not this space that he assumes is going to be there, should he receive the football, remains the same. So let's continue this discussion. Let's let the play kind of unfold a little bit more. So Julian's working towards the top of his route. Notice the space between him and the defender remains the same. He's turning back towards the quarterback. So his last image in his mind of the opportunities for his actions after he catches the football is pretty much that he should have a clear path to achieving the first down, or maybe even a touchdown. Remember, it's 3rd and 10 on this play. So his main intention is to keep the chains moving for his team, and so that way his team can keep invading the territory of the defense so they can get closer to scoring points. So as the ball is thrown, you can see that he's posturing himself to catch the football. And notice he's going to try to turn in the air so he can immediately get upfield. And in doing so, look at the information and how it's changed, how the problem's changed. All of the space that Julian thought he was going to have has now dramatically gotten smaller. And the trajectory of the defender is now on a collision course to tack Julian and tackle him as soon as he catches the football. So this is where we get a chance to see what type of skill level Julian has. Can he adapt to the situation as it presents itself? Can he show resourcefulness? Can he show the ability of quick-wittedness? Can he adapt quickly to the circumstances as they've changed? So he's catching the ball, and as he's coming down to a landing, look at what you notice. You should see that right there, he's already showing the weight that he's leaning on that foot. He's leaning into that left leg, ready to explode towards space on the outside. In other words, he notices the trajectory of the defender and the proximity of the defender relative to him, and also what his task is, which is to get the first down. And he recognizes that in order for him to get the first down, he's going to need to evade this defender. So he's going to try to avoid contact in order to do that. So let's see how this continues to unfold for Julian as the play keeps going. So as Julian begins to work his way outside, notice Julian gets collisioned by the defender. This defender clearly has a grasp on his leg, and Julian is clearly sitting in on that front side. Notice what he does. He widens his base. He manipulates his center of gravity, so now he's leaning forward, trying to maintain balance, but also trying to make sure that he can fight for the first down. So his
intentions have now changed. Where he initially thought at the beginning of the play he had space to work with, it was suddenly compressed when he turned around after catching the ball. He now has to adjust his body within the collision because there's information here. The information being the forces that the defender is applying to Julian, trying to bring him to the ground. He's torquing his body, trying to lay down and bring Julian to the ground. Well, Julian's got to adapt to those forces and still fight for a first down. So let's see how this continues to unfold and change as time goes on. So notice as the defender's rolling, trying to bring Julian to the ground, Julian is overcome by those forces. He can't fight it anymore. So he suddenly has to adjust and change his solution. He needs to stay upright in order to begin to fight for a first down. He needs to maintain his balance. He needs to adjust his body. Notice how he puts down his hand. This wasn't something that was planned at the snap of the football. This is all emerging as it goes. And notice he's trying to keep himself upright from touching the ground so that way he can still fight for yardage and get that first down. Look at the tremendous body control here in terms of managing the forces within the collision. I call this contact fidelity. His ability to remain balanced, to anticipate the collision, and then to adjust his body in order to control those forces and still manage to keep his ability to attack downfield. And notice, as he's coming out of this turn, do you see how we could see there's more information now? This problem is changing yet again. Here comes a defender ready to attack Julian. And he can likely see at least the feet or the upper thigh pads of this player as he's coming into focus. And notice as this player begins to come into focus, the problem begins to change again. And we want to see again how precise, how quick witted, what's his resolution of movement? How is he able to adapt to this situation? So as we begin to see and understand what's happening here, the play continues. And now here's an additional collision. Another collision ensues. Again, this force is directed towards Julian's lower thigh. Notice how he has the wherewithal to remain kind of compact in his posture, not only because of the situation he was exiting, but also because of the anticipation or the resourcefulness that he possesses in understanding what's about to occur. So he's able to situate his body in order to absorb this contact and be able to maintain his balance and progress downfield. So let's see how this goes even a little bit more. So he is able to keep his balance, fight off another tackle, and notice the visual gaze centered on what his intention is. This, a major constraint in shaping his movement. All of these different elements playing a key role. So he fights towards that first down marker. Notice right here, which is even more incredible, you can see as he's coming out of the actual drive after evading two tacklers, he has the wherewithal again out of his own peripheral vision to anticipate the secondary, or in this case, the third defender coming in for another tackle attempt. And once again, he postures his body. He shows the ability to anticipate the collision and adjust his body to the trajectory of the defender coming in for the tackle. Take a look at how his body even illustrates this recognition. You could see it right here, right there. You could see him leaning into the defender as he's pushing now, pushing for a first down. Incredible play.
Okay, so now that we've taken a look at the film, let's go ahead and try to assess the quality or the skill level that Julian Fleming displayed on the field. Let's see to what degree, from a holistic standpoint, he ended up meeting the demands of the problem. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we might assess it. So, in terms of the player problem solver evaluative lens, the first thing that comes to mind is, did Julian solve the problem correctly? Well, yes. I mean, he achieved a first down. He displayed body control to adapt to successive collisions across a range of temporal and spatial constraints. So, he absolutely showed the ability to solve the problem correctly, that is, to be adequate in his solution to get the job done, and he showed accuracy or precision of sensory correction. Did he show quickness of wit? Well, yeah. I mean, he showed quickness of wit. He displayed balance and flexibility. He combined his physical strength that he possesses in order to rapidly adjust his posture and his center of gravity to mitigate tackles at various levels, again, across various temporal and spatial constraints. The next thing we want to look at is, did he show rationality? Did he show expediency and economy? Well, I think that when we first started the exposure, he lacked some expediency and economy in terms of the way he handled the reception of the football. It seemed like he unnecessarily left the ground in order to catch the ball, and that really protracted his transition from a wide receiver to a runner after the catch. And I think this really kind of cascaded into him having to solve a multitude of problems later on that may or may not have existed if that one little detail might have changed. But again, that's the beauty of chaos. We don't know to what degree one thing may change another thing. We don't know. All we know is that one small change can lead to different outcomes. But I think post catch, I think he displayed rationality through and through. I think he displayed economy in terms of his ability to calibrate his body to the situation that he was facing on the field, trying to get the first down, trying to mitigate collisions. And I think he showed good organization in terms of his body in order to get that done. And last but not least, resourcefulness. I think, again, when we talk about him catching the football, I think he lacked the anticipatory understanding of how rapidly the space would be compressed by the defender after he caught the ball. But once he did actually catch the ball and he did recognize the compression of space, I thought he anticipated the angles of collision very well. He was able to adapt to collisions in rapid succession, and he showed the understanding of how to adjust to collisions as they were coming in at various trajectories while still maintaining the wherewithal to find the first down and get the yards that his team needed. So I really want to thank everybody for joining me on this journey through this one exposure, and I really hope that I sincerely hope this is supposed to be a courageous effort in really trying to share with the community a different perspective on how to look at a player's performance. Where instead of focusing on the player, we're focusing on the problem and the opportunities that the problem presents and what solutions to those problems he chose to make. So that way we can have a better understanding of their skill level. Again, please download and subscribe to the Saturday to Sunday Football Podcast. You can find us on Google Play, Stitcher, as well as iTunes. Thank you so much for joining me, and please join me next time on another Saturday to Sunday Football.com Quick Slant.